The biggest complaint I get from marketers is, why won't leaders respect my time and what I do? And worse still, why do they just not get marketing and what it really is? Today I'm sharing what you can do to reframe how your leaders view you so that even if they never change, you're going to feel way happier, and the result is you'll be more productive and more likely to get them to change the way they see you and interact with you. I'll also share how you can step up into your confidence and your power in your organization to reshape the narrative about what marketing is, the value it brings, and really try to get you taken seriously. All of this without feeling like you're not being yourself, because as an awesome old boss once told me, don't become the monster to beat the monster. You can be authentically you. You can turn up as an introvert, an extrovert, a quiet person, a loud person. You can find your way to make change in your company and to be respected. So why is this episode about Suits? Okay, because I've just finished 9 seasons of Suits. It's taken 8 months of my life because I don't watch TV all the time. And I just felt like there was so much to talk about when it came particularly to Harvey Specter and Louis Litt. I feel like we can all relate to them. And if you haven't watched it, you don't really need to have watched it for this episode to benefit you. All it is that they represent the typical kind of old school leader who sort of thrashes around shouting for what they want. Suits is pretty dated now, but there's so much we can learn from the dynamics of Harvey Specter and Louis Litt. Okay, so let's picture that these two guys are your leaders and let's dissect them as people and figure out why they act the way they act. And then let's look at how you can not only change the way that you feel about them, but also change how they are with you. So Harvey Specter and Louis Litt, if you have never watched Suits, they're basically the senior lawyers in a big firm. And don't worry, there won't be spoiler alerts other than telling little anecdotal stories. They are such interesting characters, and I particularly love the dynamic between Harvey and Louis, because Louis Litt is just the best character will ever find. As you go through the seasons, you just think you are it. But many of his behaviours along the way are just so wildly just like, no. Let's start by looking at, and you can think about your own leader when we talk about this. So why are they the way they are? Why do they shout at people? Why do they demand they get what they want? Why are they the way they are? Why is Louis so overcome with emotion at every stage? And this is what makes me laugh, is like leaders who can't control themselves at work. They are the most emotional creatures. They say that in business it's rational, like this is business. Stop worrying about things that affect you in your personal life. Stop being so emotional, they might say to people. And it's like, but you losing your cool is emotion. Like it's actually you're not able to manage your emotions at work. And so rather than judging these people, I invite you to figure out what is it that led them to be like that. So why is Louis the way he is? Why does he blow up with emotion? Louis feels like he's less than Harvey. Harvey is like the guy, isn't he? He's the one who wins. He's always in the right in the end. He's not necessarily the person that you'd really want to be married to or friends with at all times. And Louis is second place, but still amazing, but second place because that's who he is. But he always feels less than. And not to go too deep into psychology and therapy, but his experience with therapy throughout all of the seasons of Suits is so interesting because he starts to deal with his issues, and it all goes back to, okay, a little spoiler alert, but it doesn't really affect the flow of the show. If you want to just like mute me for a minute. He talks about with his therapist, they're like, why do you keep freaking out when you lose? If you don't get the better of Harvey, or if Donna exposes something that you've done. Side note, Donna is everything. And he's like, because I never get the girl. And they're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And he talks about this story that when he was in school, this guy who was maybe seen as cooler than Louis, he was dating the girl that Louis loved and who thought loved him too. She was kind of seeing both of them. And he had internalized that I'm not enough. He kind of made Harvey that person. He became obsessed with Harvey. He's more than me and I never get the thing. This is not to make excuses for the fact that Louis would scream at associates and treat them really badly. But what I found so interesting about Suits is they gave you a glimpse behind the scenes about why. So when Donna, who's kind of like the moral compass of that firm, approaches him to be like, Lewis, you cannot do that to associates. It's unacceptable. You need to go apologize. You need to make this right. He then goes off and has therapy and learns why he's doing that. I'm not asking you to condone what your leaders are doing. I'm not asking you to say it's okay when they just like don't care when you say you don't have the resources you need. I'm not saying that you should say, oh, it's okay because they've got issues like everyone, but I am saying to you, try and think when they exhibit behaviours that upset you or that make you feel less than, try and think to yourself, why is this leader like this? Because make no mistake, this is weak leadership. Like strong leaders can confidently and calmly explain and listen. I see my husband as an amazing leader. He sets out the strategy for the business really clearly. He briefs it to the team. And then if there's questions or there's things like, oh, but what about this? He's like, oh, that's a great point. Let me go have a look. Right, I've had a look. Here's why it's not going to work. We're not going to do that, but here's why. And so his team really respect him and they also feel safe to come forward with things. If you've got a leader who rubbishes your idea, doesn't listen, does things that may be detrimental to the results of the business and doesn't care, won't invest in specialist experts, believes they're right no matter what, just see that that's weak leadership. That doesn't make them a bad person, but that's coming from somewhere. Try to separate out. They're exhibiting a negative behavior. They're telling you, well, you should be able to do this. You're the marketer. You don't need this. It's like, well, they're not listening to you. Think to yourself, I wonder where that comes from. And that is not about you letting them off the hook. That's literally just about you feeling happier. If someone's rude to me now, literally someone the other day, they started screaming and swearing at me in the car. And I didn't have a strong emotional reaction to it because I was like, wow, as observing their behaviour, they were so venomously swearing at me, screaming at me, beeping at me. And I was just like fascinated by the behaviour because I saw that that person was in that place and I didn't need to be there with them. As much as it's a bit alarming, I didn't for a second question myself because I knew that, well, look, even if I have made this error, it definitely wasn't dangerous. We were moving slowly. Even if I have made that error, their reaction is completely random and unwarranted and nothing to do with me. They flew off the handle. I like to make up stories in my head. I'll think, oh my gosh, that person, they have just got a call that their elderly relative is taking a turn for the worst and they can't get there because they have a meeting and they're so stressed and they've just had an argument with their husband and they're really feeling like XYZ, anything linked to the Lewis Lit stuff. What is the therapy they need? Just seeing that everyone has got problems. And my husband, he doesn't always love this because he's like, Jade, some people are just, and he uses an expletive. And I'm like, no, I just don't agree with that because everyone is the way they are for a reason. If you really spent enough time with someone, you would find out why they're the way they are. And that is another reason why I absolutely love Suits. If you watch the entire series, and just mute for a second again if this is a spoiler, because it's not a huge spoiler. But by the end, Lewis and Harvey actually love each other. They're family. And it goes to show that over a set period of time, you could meet someone and think, I hate this person. They drive me crazy. But if you work in an office with them for long enough, I guarantee you find common ground. And that's the big thing that I think is a shame since COVID. Not to say that you should be best friends with the senior leader who screamed in your face when you were a junior. I'm not saying that, but when I worked in an office in between 2009 to 2016, I learned that the most unlikely friendships can come out of spending a lot of time with people who are really different than you. Those evenings out after work, those car journeys, maybe you're going to a meeting with someone in a different department. And I feel like that's all been lost since COVID because we're on Zoom more. We are not in the offices. And I'm not saying that we should go back to pre-COVID times, but I learned so much about myself and about other people when I worked inside a company and was in the office every single day. What you see in Suits is that all these different people who you think they're never going to get on, they're never going to see eye to eye, eventually, because they're all working through their life's journey, they're all working on themselves, they end up being like, we've been through a lot, but we're in this together and we're family. I'm not suggesting you're going to end up family with everyone in your company, but I do think that if you can look at the people around you, like how many of them are you writing off? How many of them are you thinking they're just and I don't want to speak to them. I don't want anything to do with them. Maybe if you can just think about them at home with their children, with their grandchildren, with their friends, with their family, when they're feeling sad after an argument, you can start to build a little bit of empathy for someone, even if they're not exhibiting behaviours that you agree with. That's the first step, accepting that people's behaviours and how they deal with stuff is not about you, it's about them. And so that means that you can let yourself off the hook with beating yourself up when someone comes at you. And the second thing that you can do is you can learn ways to be more assertive. And this is something I cover a lot in my signature program, B2B Breakthrough Academy, because even though that course, and I talked to a lot of people about the course being how to build a marketing strategy from scratch, from stage one all the way through to actually presenting it to leaders and getting their buy-in. What I don't talk about very often is that what enables that to actually happen is the groundwork that goes into having conversations, making sure that marketing is seen as a strategic part of the business, not a task part of the business. And that doesn't come from templates. That doesn't come from you sitting at your desk and sending emails. That comes from real conversations where maybe you'll feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, but once you are able to tolerate maybe the behaviors that probably shouldn't be happening if they're not good. I'm not saying accept being treated really badly. I just mean when people don't respond in the exact way you would want, when they don't immediately agree with you, then again, you don't feel that panic of, oh my gosh, that imposter syndrome of what if it's me? You are learning to be strategic because you've gone through that process, but also your mindset shift. One of the techniques that I teach within B2B Breakthrough Academy in the mindset section, and I am going to be launching a mindset bundle soon, so keep an eye out on that, is I teach people to be curious as opposed to defensive. And so it's really easy to do this. If you're in a meeting with loads of salespeople, commercial people, and they start to say, well, you should be doing this and that, la, 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 answer with a question. Don't feel you have to be defensive and defend yourself. Answer with a question. I'm really interested in why you feel that our website is not bringing the results that you want it to. Can you tell me more about what it is you're expecting from the website so that I can go away, look into it, and then come back to you and explain what's been happening? You're putting it back to them. They then have to respond. So you're putting it to them. They've loaded onto you and you've gone, you can have that back. Do you see? You kind of have it back and make it more clear to me. And then maybe what comes back is a slightly lighter load, but it's still heavy. Okay, I'm going to put that back to you, make it smaller, make it... Oh, okay, great. I can manage this. That's the real question. Let me answer that for you. You don't think that marketing is working hard enough. Let me talk to you about that. In our department, we have 2 people and we have this budget. What we've been focusing on in line with our strategy is this, this, this. I would love to do the stuff that you're talking about because I think it's a great idea. What we're going to have to think about is the resource and how far it will stretch, because something will have to drop if we take on that one. And I think that the ones we've chosen are the best fit for the problem in hand. But I love your idea. Let's have a look at if there's a place for that. And if so, what's dropping? Boom. And watch their jaw hit the floor. If they're a nice person, or if they're a person who exhibits nice behaviours, they will be like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. That really helps. If they're not that great, if they're not as in tune with reality, then they'll be back at you. But their jaw will hit the floor because you've won. You've won that argument there because it's the truth, because you got to the heart of what's really going on there. And you made them be the ones to diffuse the situation as opposed to you feeling like you have to. I hope that's a useful tip to leave you with. I just want to say as well that I am so glad Suits has finished. I am so tired from that show. I watched 9 seasons and I couldn't get away from it because once I'm into a series, I want to watch it to the end, but I cannot believe how long it was. So I'm just so glad it's over. And once Rachel wasn't there anymore, I was just like, oh, why am I watching this now? It just is so nostalgic for me because I worked in those days where we wore those types of clothes to work and I used to strut around like Rachel. Granted, I'm not married a royal now, but I just resonated with that character, and how she felt at work is how I felt at work, going into cool projects and stuff like that. And I just think Suits is such a good psychology lesson. You start off and you judge all these people and you see the things they do and the mistakes they make and you start to understand them. And Donna is just, I'm Donna. Like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Donna. If you haven't watched Suits, maybe it's time to get stuck in, but don't say I didn't warn you. If you have, let me know in comments who your favourite character is, and have you got a leader who's anything like any of the characters? I hope you haven't got a Daniel Hardman, because he's the one that I just can't get behind him, but everyone else I loved. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to get more videos. I wanted to do this one to be a bit more chill today. I just thought it'd be a fun one just to hop in. I'm editing it myself. Just download from the end of Suits, and make sure you like the video if you liked it as usual, and I will see you later.